at Sports Cheetah and Justin Fan at JFan on the Twitter. Great games tonight, folks. We got in the late game. We got the Utah Jazz and the LA Clippers. But first, we got the Sixers and the Hawks. Betting windows are open. That game tips off in about an hour. Lineups are locked. The bets are being placed. It's the most exciting window in sports. Everything we're going to talk about, the size, the totals, the research, the data, the player props, get all of it. Follow Justin Fan's picks in the Action Network app. He's got a ton of followers, but not the most at the Action Network. I wonder if he's feeling jealous about that. Nearly 60,000 followers in the Action Network app. Download it. It's free. Before we get to the games, fellas, before we get to your best bets, big news. Kyrie Irving injured his ankle. Does not look good for him to come back, at least for the next couple of games in this series. This Nets-Bucks series where the Nets looked like it was done. They were locking it in. Coach Bud was going to figure out what his next job was going to be after the Bucks. Now, all of a sudden, we got to reimagine this thing. Let's talk about who your favorites are to win the title right now based on this latest information. Justin, you can go up first. No, wait. Hold on. I'm already misreading it. Technically ready, emotionally not there. Justin, let's talk about the next Nets, Bucks in Game 5 without Kyrie.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely changes the calculus of things. And, we talked about the futures to UTs that the Phoenix Suns, I think, are the biggest beneficiary of all this news. They had their injury scare with Chris Paul on his shoulder. He's fully healthy. He's fully back, look great, and they get extended time off. So in terms of future plays, I think they remain my favorite one to win the title. They just continue to get disrespected. We talked about this 2 weeks on the show. They were heading into Game 5 against the Lakers. AD had just gotten hurt, and they were plus 800 to win the West, right? They win that Game 5, heading to Game 6 are only plus 550, right? So I think this team continues to get disrespected. You look at the next real contenders in the mix for the title, the Nets, the Bucks, the Jazz, and the Clippers. The Nets are dealing with injuries to Kyrie and James Harden. The Jazz are dealing with injuries to Mike Conley. And those guys might not be 100% for a while, too. I think the public is just kind of expecting those guys to come back immediately, slot back in, be 100%, no risk of aggravation. I don't think that's the case at all, right? We've saw that with how it went in that Lakers series with Anthony Davis, only made it through a couple minutes, re-aggravated and had to sit out the rest of the game. So the Phoenix Suns for me remain the team that I'm looking for to get in at their current price in terms of to win the West and to win the title.
All right, Phoenix Suns are currently to win the NBA title plus 375. Preston, we're tying it all together, sort of the Kyrie injury, how it's going to impact Nets Bucks, but also how it impacts odds to win the title from your point of view. What do you got?
Small disagreement. I agree with a lot of what Justin said. I think the biggest beneficiary is the Milwaukee Bucks. That's who they play right now. And now the Bucks are favorites to win this series when a game or two ago they were counted out at that point. Then it's the Sixers. Then it's whoever comes out of the West. Now, do I think the Suns are mispriced? I know we talked about this a little bit earlier with Justin, the plus 375 at BetMGM. I looked around. You can even get plus 400 on the Suns. I think it's a little bit mispriced because, look, the Jazz are plus 400 right now. They're still in a series. It's about a 60-40 series against the Clippers. They still have to win first before being small favorites potentially against the Suns, but that's going to be extremely close to a coin flip series in the end, especially if Mike Conley is out and Mitchell is not 100%. So I do like the Suns at that price. I think plus 375 to plus 400 range is great. But as far as this injury to Kyrie on top of James Harden, the Bucks are now minus 150 to win this series when they were pretty big dogs a couple of days ago. So shout out to Milwaukee, shout out to the Eastern Conference, getting a look, getting a shot. Maybe it's the Sixers in the end. But as far as the price is concerned, I'm with him. I think Phoenix is a team that has the value now that they can sit back, rest, and get ready for the Western Conference Finals.
Speaking of disrespect, I'm going to be on the Clippers. They're about plus 800 right now. And I'd like to know, did the producers, when we decided on this segment, I'm sorry, I was playing executive earlier today and I did not get a chance to be on the production call. When they were doing this segment, did they remember that Chad Millman said the Clippers and the Bucks are the teams that will get to the NBA Finals? Did they prepare that clip? Do they have that clip ready to cut to right now? When we're talking about disrespect, that's what we're talking about. I'm still going to be on the Clippers plus 800. That is where the best value is right now. Go Clips tonight against the Jazz. Let's turn this thing around. All right, let's get to our first segment. Betting is believing. Preston Johnson, you are up first.
So I'm going to go after this Hawks Sixers game, and it's kind of reminding me a little bit of that game 4 between the Bucks and the Nets, where at game 3 at home, everyone's anticipating a Bucks bounce back the spread, and that I think was 3.5 at close. Most shops, meaning the Bucks were 3.5 point favorites at home. Then game 4, they're all of a sudden 2.5 point dogs. And I just thought it was pretty reactionary to people in the perception that, hey, the Bucks barely won and Joe Harris was 1 for 11 from the field. This is kind of similar where I think people have realized, okay, the last 2.5 quarters, the Sixers have dominated. It's true. They've solved the Hawks. It's over. Now they're laying 3. It was even 3.5 earlier this morning places. Look, no Danny Green. I know people are going to say, hey, Trey ate him up in game 1 in that first half. Danny Green could be a blessing. Look, he's still a better defender on the wings against Bogdanovich, or if it's Gallinari, or if he switched on Herter. Like, he's still a person you want who has won a bunch of championships on the floor. He's out for 2 to 3 weeks with a calf strain. It means a lot more for Ken Korkmaz. It means more Thibault, which is maybe fine defensively, but he can't score. And Korkmaz, by the way, after that game, Doc Rivers said, I think the quote was, I can't believe how much improved Furkan Korkmaz's defense is, because he came in and hit 4 threes off the bench. Like, now the Atlanta Hawks have an entire game to plan for 24 to 28 Korkmaz minutes, and I think they're going to destroy him. So I do lean the Hawks at the +3. And now I've made you guys wait for it, but I prefer Hawks team total over 112.5. I angle there better. I like the Hawks at +3. Just from a sheer numbers perspective, I anticipate them getting over this total. And by the way, in game 1, remember they came out blazing, shooting a ton of threes. The Sixers changed it up. They've been running them off the 3-point line. In game 2, the Hawks only shot about 35% from 3. In game 3, it was down to 26% from 3. And it's intentional. The Sixers are running them off hard. But it also set up the Hawks getting to the free throw line over 30 times. They're going to get to the free throw line again a ton of times tonight, I anticipate. And on top of that, we should see some positive regression from 3. So I'm going with it. Weaker Philadelphia D. Hawks getting to the free throw line and probably shooting better than 26% from 3. And by the way, they still got 111 points last game anyway.
Oh my God. Go ahead, Fan.
So one thing I wanted to touch on this game that is pertinent to the total, the over that Preston likes, is how Philly starts, right? And I think Doc Rivers is cognizant of the fact that if you start Furkan Korkmaz and you put Ben Simmons on Trae Young, right, that means Korkmaz will have to probably guard Bogdanovich and he'll get torched there, right? So I do think there's a chance that Rivers realizes this and starts Matisse Thybulle instead. So you can always have Matisse Thybulle or Ben Simmons on Trae Young, and you don't leave yourself vulnerable to a guy like Bogdanovich and vulnerable to a weaker defender on the wing like Korkmaz. So really interested to see how Doc Rivers starts in this one, whether he starts out with Thybulle or Korkmaz on the wing.
Yeah, look, Preston, everything you said, it makes me nervous about foreshadowing what my pick will be. Thybulle is one of those guys, I'd want him on the floor 40 to 45 minutes a game in every game that matters. And I actually think it's a tragedy he did not get more attention as a potential rookie of the year last year, because I think all of a sudden everyone's always saying we got to tout defense, we got to tout defense. He was an unbelievable defender last year as a rookie, coming in and playing in a way that a lot of rookies don't transition well to playing defense. He should have gotten more attention for it. If no other reason, then coaches would have more reason to say, hey, play defense. You can get attention to be rookie of the year. Fan, what is your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to go under on the Jazz Clippers game at 224. And this is basically just regression based on the underlying metrics. You look at through 3 games, these teams have played at a 95.2 pace. And you look at the games where they've started small, actually, the pace has been 93 and 94.5, right? And I think there's a lot of adjustments and rotation quirks that lead me to like the under a little bit more. They're not starting Zubac anymore at center. That starting lineup with Zubac got absolutely torched defensively, 143.5 defensive rating. Donovan Mitchell just ate like Luka did in the first round, right? So they went back to that small starting lineup in game 3. That's what they should do moving forward, right? And then we saw Terrence Mann play 22 minutes in game 3. That's our guy. We love Terrence Mann on the show. We'll get back into that a little later, but he played 22 minutes after playing like 9 minutes combined in games 1 and 2. No more Rajon Rondo, no more DeMarcus Cousins. I like just the rotational adjustments that we're getting in this game, and you just look at the shot quality, right? If you look at what the expected total should be based on all the shot and the shot quality that have been taken in this series, it should be about 220 points per game, right? You have both teams shooting 42% from three in the series, which would lead the league. I don't expect that to continue. And then one big thing is the health of Donovan Mitchell, right? He re-aggravated that right ankle. That's given him problems at the end of last game. He's the entire engine behind this Jazz offense, right? And they're scheming specifically to blitz him and to limit him. So if he's not 100%, this Jazz offense becomes a lot less potent. So I like the under here. Just with all these factors, the pace, the regression with the shooting, and the health of Donovan Mitchell.
Basically, you guys have said we are the show that only Terrence Mann's family can love. And by the way, if we could produce any kind of Inside the NBA show, I think that's what it should be. I am going with the Sixers -3 against the Hawks. Totally square pick. Why would I not be taking the Sixers -3 against the Hawks when they've played the way they have? But here's the problem. I don't believe in this Hawks team anymore. And I don't believe there can be a positive regression to their overall performance, Preston. Forget about what they can do on the 3-point line. I think people got too excited about what they saw in game one, when for about 3/4 of that game, the Hawks were the better team. And then all of a sudden, the Sixers figured out, oh, wait a second, we're the better team. This is how we can dominate this game. They came storming back. They nearly pulled that game out. There's a couple of Bogdanovich's 3-pointers that sort of sealed the game at the end in the final couple minutes. But since that game, the Sixers are just a much, much better team. And they have completely dominated. And then there's Joel Embiid. Clint Capella has done nothing in this series to defend him. He on-off stats, on-court, off-court stats, +13, +14, +16 for Joel Embiid in these 3 games. I expect more dominance from Embiid, who clearly is not questionable. I expect the Sixers to go up 3-1 and win handily tonight. Stop laughing at me, Preston. Say what you want to say.
I wasn't laughing. I gave
say
you some
what
shakes
you
the other
want to
way.
say. Go ahead.
What's your biggest Hawks backing, Preston? Because I do think that's probably the right side, but I struggle to see how they actually do it. I think they'll need big games like Kevin Huerter, Bogdanovich, Danilo Gallinari, right? Because I actually think you brought out the Danny Green injury. That's probably a bad thing for the Hawks in some respects, because that means you're going to get 48 minutes or 38 minutes of either Ben Simmons or Matisse Thybulle and Trae Young the entire time he's on the floor. He's not going to see any Danny Green. He's going to be on one of those guys the entire time. That really limits what he's able to do. So you're really asking for big games from these supporting guys more so, as a result. So yeah, I struggle to see it.
So explain yourself, Preston.
Couple things. One, that's what everyone said. And Justin, we're in some threads together about the Nets Bucks. They couldn't wait to fire on Nets. I was like, this is an incredibly weird line. Like, it's definitely Bucks or pass. It's just everyone's, well, how are they going to score? The Bucks can't score. Blah 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 blah. Look, Justin Tucker. He kicks for a football team. PJ Tucker, and then Forbes and Brook Lopez in the same game. Joe Harris was 1 for 11. Can't believe the Nets only lost by 3. Those 3 guys combined 1 for 16. Like, it was bad regression both sides. The final score was 86-83. Okay, so you can punt that out. So, like, there's a similar vibe here that, like, how are the Hawks going to do this? Like, Trae was extremely efficient last game, right? He had 27 and 8 or 29 and 8 on above 50% shooting. And if it's Simmons and Thybulle, by the way, Thybulle, great if you want him to play 40 to 45 minutes. He fouls out in 17 minutes. Like, that's just how he plays. I don't think he can ever play that many minutes, at least until he is able to finesse what he tries to do. And Ben Simmons on him, like, they can try to get switches. They have other options. I think, they have the ability to hit shots. And I think Doc saying, I'm going to use what you used on the Terrence Mann quote from game 2 to game 1 about Patrick Beverley and what Tyronn Lue said. Look, Doc Rivers couldn't believe how great Korkmaz's defense is. Okay, Doc, for one game, good luck pitching for Korkmaz 24 plus minutes in this one. Shake Milton's going to be in the mix too. Like, Trae has opportunities to take advantage of the defense. I think Danny Green's still, I don't know why people think this is like a plus for the Hawks. I really don't see that in any way, because it means more Korkmaz and Milton and Thybulle, which is just overall, I don't think, again, even if Danny Green's falling off some, he's really positive, high impact player in the NBA that's won a ton of championships that I think will be felt from the Sixers for the next few games.
Yeah, I'll say this. If I'm back in the Sixers, I want to see Thybulle starting instead of Korkmaz. If I'm back in the Hawks, I want to see Korkmaz starting instead of Thibault.
Yes. Korkmaz, even Milton would be fine.
I'll say this. If I'm backing the Sixers, I want them to win by more than 3 points. Boil it down.
Sure.
Facts are facts. All right, let's go to the betting wheel. This is when our contestants, including myself, will have to choose a player prop over under based on the randomness of our wheel being spun by producer extraordinaire Evan Abrams. Spin that wheel, brother. Preston Johnson, you were up first. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Terrence Mann, points.
You guys would.
Points,
okay, no, I'm glad we got this one. I'm glad we got this one. Look,
Redemption.
Terrence Mann was so good in the Mavs series. And then in game one, he plays limited minutes, and Patrick Beverley has a good 5-minute stretch. And then Justin was sharp enough to tell me when we did this last one before game two, look, Tyronn Lue says, I love Patrick Beverley. I'm going to use him more. And Luke Kennard came in and hit a few threes. So Terrence Mann played, I think, a 40-second stretch to end the third quarter or something like that. And that was it. He basically didn't play at all. I liked his over 3.5 points. We've looked at all of the net positive versus on-off stuff with Mann in these Mavs games, the Clippers games. Look, he was like a plus 22 in 21 minutes this last game for the Clippers. He's going to get a lot more minutes now. Beverley played fewer minutes. Rondo's out of the mix now, which before he was playing earlier. Trust in Terrence Mann. I'm trusting in Tyronn Lue now. He was part of their best 8-man rotation against Dallas. Similar thing here with the way Donovan Mitchell's been cooking, even despite the supposed ankle injury, which he keeps tweaking at the end of these games. Mann has to play more minutes. 6.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I think he had 7 points alone last game. So give him that 20-minute range, and this should go over the 6.5.
By the way, I love when you mentioned the Mavs. I love that there's a report today by The Athletic that Haralabab Vulgaris, who we all know is probably the most relevant, influential NBA bettor, if not sports bettor, of the last 20 years, who is now an executive with the Mavs. There is a report that he may have the biggest influence on whether or not Luka ultimately resigns with the Mavs. That is the kind of world we live in today, folks. Bob Vulgaris, most influential executive that could decide the fate of a future Hall of Famer in Luka. All right, Fan, you're up next. We're going to spin the wheel. Evan Abrams, please spin it. We are on Reggie Jackson over under 2.5 assists. Fan, what do you got?
Yeah, I got the over in this one. I haven't projected for 4.4 assists. He's averaging 3.5 per 36 this series. And if you just look at the raw numbers, he didn't play full minutes in 2 of the 3 games. Game 1, he got into foul trouble and fouled out. Only played 17 minutes, I believe. And then last game was a blowout. He didn't play full minutes there. So assuming this one stays relatively competitive, relatively close, he's an extremely important player for them, which is why it's scary as heck to back the Clippers, saying Reggie Jackson is one of their most important players. But he's been phenomenal, and they need him on the floor. He's third in usage rate on that team by a wide margin, third in passes made, super involved. And yeah, assuming this one stays close, I think he approaches 30, 35, 36 minutes. So I think this one is a little low. It's kind of looking at his per game averages. He's gone 3, 3, and 2 in the 3 games so far. And I think, yeah, in a more normal setting with fuller minutes, I think he should easily go over this number.
Well, listen, right now we have a 1 in 4 chance, a 25% chance that we are an all Clippers player prop choice. Let's spin the wheel, see if we land on Kawhi Leonard. Evan Abrams, please spin that wheel. Let's see what we get. And we got Kawhi Leonard. Oh my God, it's crazy. Kawhi Leonard, over under 1.5 steals. This is going to me. I'm going way over, folks. Well, doesn't matter. I'm just going over because these numbers, it's so interesting. And Fan, you mentioned this as well. These numbers are based essentially on what his playing time had been over the course of a regular season. Over the course of a regular season, he had 24 games out of the 52 games that he played in where he had more than one steal. And he was playing a significantly reduced load because of load management. You up that number in the regular season to 37 minutes, he had steals in 10 of the 15 games that he played 37 minutes. So now we're talking about the playoffs. He's playing more than 38 minutes a game. And in 7 of the 10 games in which he's done that, he's got multiple steals in 7 of those 10 games. So why would I not go with the over here? And my bigger question is, how are bookmakers not adjusting for sort of increased minutes? Because I feel like this is the barometer for how we are making some of these player prop decisions almost every single week. Fan, you go first.
I have one theory.
Preston, you go first.
I could throw at you. I just remember how we always complained as Clippers backers in the series against Dallas, how they weren't even using Kawhi on Luka until they had to in Game 3, and then they even kind of shied away from it before. I think the Clippers are at least somewhat hesitant to waste all of Kawhi's energy on the defensive side of the ball. We saw that in games 1 and 2, and then again he comes out in Game 3. He's on Donovan Mitchell, and it's better. So I think when he's kind of standing off in the corner a lot, he's not going to be frequenting steals as often, right? Like he's just going to be there getting rebounds or maybe helping occasionally. But now if you're anticipating him to be on Donovan Mitchell so they can tie the series back up similar to Game 3, then he's in the mix of the pick and roll and the decisions Mitchell is making when he attacks the basket or passes out, right? Like I think this is probably the right side now, but I think that you'll see a market that's reactionary to the first 2 games of a series, similar with the Reggie Jackson assists, like Justin brought up. There's a few reasons why his assist totals have been low so far. And in this case, if Kawhi's, initially wasn't even guarding Mitchell, his steals totals were lower. And then here we are in a chance where I think he'll be on Mitchell for at least the majority of the game. So we saw it with Luka last series, seeing it here. I think that's the right side.
Probably the right side. It is the right side, Preston.
Actually, I heard someone say before this show started, his name's Chad Millman. He said, "I don't dabble with wrong." That was it. That was the quote.
I don't dabble in wrong. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. I only dabble extensively in right. All right, let's go to the Justin. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Are we good? You want to go to the next segment?
Let's go to the next segment.
All right, we're gonna play Fade the Public. This is where we asked you, the Twitter sphere, in a poll, what your opinion was. Joel Embiid, more points than Paul George, points plus assists. We asked you to vote. You guys know nothing, so we usually fade the poll. You guys thought 67% of you thought Joel Embiid would have more points than Paul George would have points plus assists. You're doubting playoff P. I don't know how you could do that. Preston, what do you think?
I know how you could do that, but that's a different story for another day. Respect Paul George after a great Game 3. The market, interestingly enough, is about 30.5 for each of these totals. So it's kind of a good head-to-head. I have to go with the one that I am confident will for sure play the entirety of the game and won't potentially tweak something or re-injure something. So that's Paul George and the assists. I know it's against the wisdom of the public. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I wouldn't bet either of these. But I do think the Paul George stuff is just interesting in general because he's such a high variance player and seems to be like even more so in the playoffs where he either goes 2 for 14 or I think the other night he was 6 of 10 from 3 alone. He passed up a bunch of Clippers on the all-time playoff threes made list. He's like 3rd all-time for the Clippers. He's played in 2 seasons. So he's either super hot or super cold. I'll trust that he can get to that 25 to 30 point range just as often as Embiid, more or less, with kind of the downside to Embiid's health.
Fan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll go Paul George too. I have his points and assists at 33.6 and Embiid projected for 31.3. So about a 2.3 edge there. And you look at just the way things are trending in the series, it leans more towards Paul George. In Game 3, Paul George had his highest single game usage rate of the entire playoffs at 34.5%. They intentionally put the ball a lot more in his hands. And you looked at the usage rate distribution in that game. It was basically Kawhi, PG, and everybody else, right? No other Clippers player had a usage rate above 16% in that game. So Paul George is going to touch the ball a lot more in this one, be a lot more involved, points and assists. And then you look at how they played, the Hawks played Embiid in that last game. They were super aggressive throwing double teams. They threw a lot of heavier coverages on him. Whenever he's on the post, they threw a double on him. And his usage rate fell from 49% the previous game to 29% as a result. They were throwing a ton of doubles his way. And they had to really kind of switch things up. He was a lot more on the high post. Ben Simmons was in the post instead. So just the way the defenses are playing, Embiid and how Paul George is more involved, that lean towards him, and his usage rate is trending in the right direction.
I buy it.
I think the Embiid, real quick, Chad, Embiid had his career high in assists for a playoff game with 8 in that game. So I think Justin's read is spot on. They're going to keep sending doubles and make everyone else beat him, especially now that Danny Green's out.
It'll be a negative regression to the mean for Embiid. I agree with you. Look, I love the Sixers in this game. I'm square on it, but I agree about Paul George just probably having a better opportunity to go over Embiid's points. All right, let's recap. where we are at. Preston, you were on Atlanta's team total over 112.5. Shockingly, you're on Terrence Mann over 6.5 points, rebounds. Is it points, rebounds, assists, or just points and assists?
Yeah,
Points,
all
rebounds,
three.
and
We
assists.
get all three.
Yep. And then you were on Paul George for points and assists over Joel Embiid. Fan, you were on the Clippers and the Jazz under 224. You're on Reggie Jackson. He's the straw that stirs the Clippers drink over 2.5 assists. You were also on Paul George. Chad Millman, who never dabbles in wrong, is on the Sixers -3 against the Hawks. He's on Kawhi over 1.5 assists. He will also be on Paul George over Joel Embiid, his points and assists over Embiid's points. This has been Heat Check from BetMGM and the Action Network. I am Chad Millman. One of them is Preston Johnson. One of them is Justin Fan. We will be back on Thursday. Good luck tonight.